So I hear through the grapevine.
Heard it through the grapevine. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 512 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Paul Lee Cooley. Joining me, Mr. Terry Mixon. How are you, Mr. Mixon?
Paul, I am your father.
Oh, let's hope not. Let's hope not. It would explain nothing. You just wanted me to agree so you could say, "Who's your daddy?" That's what that was all about.
I say that anyway.
Oh,
I think that pretty well dates me when, that's a thing. Saying who's your daddy actually
daddy
means something to you.
Like your mama wears combat boots kind of thing.
Yeah, sort of like that. Wears combat boots, follows trading ships, whatever it is.
All right, all that aside, how the hell are you?
I'm good. Can't complain. I finally actually started writing on this short story that I need to get finished.
Yay!
Knowing who the characters are is actually pretty helpful in writing these stories.
Yes, it does kind of help, even with the short story. So that's all you've got in the writing pipeline right now?
I need to get this short story finished because when I get back from the trip to Nashville that we're leaving on Thursday, I will have all of the stuff from Glenn Stewart to write the next middle of the next book. So I've got to jump right into that on Monday.
Right. Okay. So you don't really have much going on.
Not right now. I've about ran out of short stories that I have to write. So this is a good thing. Short stories, those are a different kind of challenge for me.
Yeah, I'm figuring that out too. Yeah, Friday, I finally finished the story that I owed for an anthology, and
only 5,000 words over.
Only 5,000 words over the maximum word count. So Saturday was a lot of chopping up things. I had to cut a scene I really liked, unfortunately, but it gave writing this little story gave me so many ideas for a novella or a collection of novellas about terraforming a planet. So I liked what I did. I liked the feel of it, and it was fun. It was fun. I had some Lovecraftian bullshit into it and did my thing again where you never really see the monster and you just see pieces of it. So trying to make it as gloomy and suspenseful as possible and give it that feel.
So you're going to write a follow-up novel where the guy comes back to get revenge on the monster? I'm sure it'll work out. I'm sure it'll work out just fine.
I'm not saying a damn word. Anyway, that was a lot of fun, but on Friday I wrote 5,000 words. So I was a little busy trying to make the deadline and trying to finish the story. And at one point I looked at it and was like, it was over 10,000 words. I went, can we just find the end?
The way I understand it, that's pretty much every single thing you write.
It's getting that bad. Yeah. I'm going to have to go practice. I'm going to have to go to a support group to learn how to write a short story again.
we need to have a show about endings. Come on,
endings.
Paul.
I know how to make endings. It's just I keep finding more and more things to throw in front of the character, more and more complications.
How to stop shitting on your characters. That's what the episode title will be. How to stop shitting on your characters.
You can't always be Lucy. You can't always pull the football away.
Oh, I was thinking the other Lucy. Lucy, you got some complaining to do.
Oh, that too. But you can't always be Lucy. You have to let the characters kick the ball every now and then. You just got to do it. But yeah, I like to make them think the ball's not going to be there when they go to kick it.
It's something that you need to keep track of here, or you need to think about doing in one of your stories is you have things go wrong so badly for your characters. At some point, you need to have something unexpectedly go right, and them all stare at each other going, that can't be that easy.
Yeah, that's, well, I'm going to play with that. And might be playing with that right now with the evolution. This is all going so well. Yeah, until it doesn't. So yeah, got to finish the book. Really got to finish the goddamn book. So I'm working on evolution still, and I'm working on something else, which is why a certain person is going to kill me. I started something kind of fun today, and I'm going to see if it's something I can write really fast. But I'm gonna commit to 2,000 words a day on evolution until I get that puppy done, and then I'll write another 2,000 words on this other thing because I'm just having a good time with it. So, and it's short and uncomplicated, and it's just meant to be candy. No broad investigations of technologies, no massive what ifs and explain this, that, and the other. It's just going to be
characters bebopping into the way of harm.
Yeah, it's just going to be Dead Space with a bunch of lunatics. It will be fun. It will be fun.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like the new Predator movie.
I haven't actually seen a review of it or even looked at it. I've
only seen the trailers.
Yeah, I've heard some comments back and forth that were saying it violated the meta or recreated the meta, something like that.
What?
Yeah.
The meta what?
The meta of the series.
Fuck it. Redo the damn thing.
Just roll it over.
As long as it's a good story, that's fine. I mean, look what they did with Star Trek.
Look what they did with James Bond
stuff. They just basically said, past history, fuck that. Here we go.
Yeah, James Bond has to do that because of the time frames, but so with these other franchises.
I could care less about series continuity when you're basically restarting it, which these aren't your Schwarzenegger level Predator movies. Fuck it. You got to change a few things, make a good story, do it.
It just bothers me because it's like it speaks to laziness. It either speaks to laziness, trying to recapture and make money off of property you already own, so it's a lot easier to do legally.
So the last Terminator movie, that's what you're thinking.
I haven't seen it, don't know. But yes, there's the nostalgia sales. And then maybe there's somebody who just really likes the damn creature and wants to, or the characters, and wants to reboot it with a different vision. I understand all of those. The problem is that I think it usually, when it's not done well, is it was just a rights or money grab. And sometimes they make these movies as really shitty movies because they're about to lose the rights to a property, and the only way to keep it is to make a shitty movie. They actually do that.
Yeah,
and they do that, and some authors do that with books. It's the same kind of deal. It's like I have to, in order to satisfy my contract, I have to do this, that, or the other. Otherwise, we lose all this money or future rights to it. I'm pretty sure they've been kicking the Punisher can down the road for a long time before it found a home at Netflix. I'm pretty sure that was going on for a very long time. And Constantine was another property like that. So
sadly, I liked the Constantine movie.
I thought it was all right. What pissed me off is that I read the comics, the old graphic novels. I read the original stuff and Garth Ennis's run on the series, and it was just so antithetical to the actual John Constantine character in the comics that it was just, I had to cut out a significant portion of my brain to wrap my head around it because the characters were so different.
My wife has been watching Preacher.
Yeah.
And she's read all but the very last of the graphic novels as well. I haven't heard her talk about how well it matches up with them, but from what I've seen, the show is pretty awesome.
I've only seen like 2 episodes of it, but I really loved that series. I had heard about it for years, but never looked at it. And then a friend said, you got to go check this out. So I bought one of the graphic novels that covered the first 13 issues of the comic book by the guy who essentially created Swamp Thing. Well, he did a lot of work on the Swamp Thing comic and came up with the idea for Constantine. Or maybe that was actually Alan Moore. I don't remember. Regardless, this first guy who worked on the Constantine books, wow, that character just screamed off the page. And the stuff was just excellent writing, excellent everything. But try and transport it to 2000s America causes a lot of issues. And Preacher has a lot of issues because there are a few things I saw them staying away from or trying to simplify and draw out. So I don't know about the series, but I loved the graphic novels.
In the initial, I saw a good chunk of the first season. I think I may have seen the entirety of the first season of Preacher. And I haven't watched any more because there's just not enough hours in the day. I got nothing against it. I thought it was good. But the initial episode that they rolled out, the writers went ahead and stuck in there. This thing was trying to find a home on Earth before it found Preacher, and it was basically blowing people up because they just weren't suited for it.
Yes.
And they had where it went into Tom Cruise and blew him up.
Yep. And Brent and I were watching it, and we clinked glasses of scotch.
The writers said that they stuck that in there knowing that someone would tell them to take it back out. And then it just kept going, and they kept waiting. And it's like, they're not going to let this get through, are they? Holy shit, they're going to let it go through.
That's what the Simpsons writers do that all the time, to put something in there to draw attention away from something else that's even worse. Or, something they wanted to get in there, but this other one, they wanted to throw it out there so the MPAA could cross it off, or the censors, whomever does it, could say no. And they didn't say no to either of them. And they went, oh, shit, we're going to take some fallout for this.
Oh, those are fun when that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, well.
They were expecting so much fallout from doing that in the first episode of Preacher that it was hilarious listening to them talk about it.
I think there are so many people who were probably laughing their asses off.
I was
not offended at all, even if they love Tom Cruise, because it was so damn funny because it happened like on camera or something. He was
on stage somewhere, basically blew up.
That's a story into itself.
And then they had the news thing afterward. Actor Tom Cruise mysteriously explodes on stage.
Yeah.
I wonder what Tom Cruise thought of that.
Who the f cares? Anyway, it sounds like a really great scene, Terry.
Oh, man. Scenes, they're so hard, but they can be so awesome.
Yeah. So, you should really think about when you write scenes. Here are some of our thoughts on it.
That's a complex question for such a simple thing.
Now, we're not talking about a tantrum thrown by a small child in a restaurant.
Oh, well, that could be another type of scene.
Or a bad breakup at a dinner table. Those wouldn't be scenes.
It is the start of a sequence of events that is contained to basically exercise one kind of idea that you're getting across to the reader from beginning to end in the very brief thing. Now's where you can disagree with me. I assume that means you disagree.
I disagree very, very much.
Bring it on.
Very, very much. Bring it on. There are quite a few plays, for instance, that only have two scenes. The first act and the second act. That's it.
That's just lazy.
No, it's not actually. God, you're so bad. A scene does not have to be a single thing. Lots of things can happen within a scene. For instance, the good guy starts out, or bad guy, doesn't matter, starts out in a restaurant, ends up having a gunfight with a whole bunch of guys or girls, whatever. Ends up fleeing, but we're staying with them. That scene is transferring across. There's no delineation necessary.
I can agree with that. Basically, time breaks are where the scenes split apart.
Correct.
But you could easily put a time break as they're hauling ass away and pick them up somewhere else. It's where you cut out the boring parts. If you're still not doing a boring part, then you're probably not done.
Cutting out the boring parts.
I'm serious here.
Explain the boring part.
If we'll use your example, there's a gunfight in a bar. Boom, boom, boom. It's a bunch of you said guys or girls. We're just going to go with girls. A bunch of girls with Tommy guns shooting up the main hero. I have no idea what kind of villainous group that is, but, there you are. And he manages to escape. If you're going to have the car chase afterwards, that's all good. You're still in the same scene. If you cut off and he's arriving at the Whataburger 15 minutes later because he's, hungry, there's been a gunfight, that's another scene.
Yes, I agree. But your thought about
But
there being
if they're still chasing him down the street and shooting up the Whataburger, that's probably still the same scene.
Let me get this straight. In this story, he goes to the Whataburger and they're still chasing him because he's got to get his damn taquitos and coffee before he allows them to begin the chase again.
Maybe that's the case.
Meanwhile, they're shooting up the Whataburger while he's screaming for his taquito and coffee.
You know, that could totally be a scene in something.
Why hasn't somebody written this yet? Somebody needs to write this story.
Why do I see all the Tommy gun wielding women dressed like characters out of Tank Girl?
Oh. Wow. Like I said, internet, get on this shit. I want to read it. I want to watch it.
There have been any number of books that I've read in the past that kind of scene would fit right in with everything else. It could fit into a Dresden novel easily enough.
Yes. In fact, that's the scene in what's the other term that he used?
I'm trying to remember now. I don't remember.
I can't believe we forgot that already. Anyway, when you talked about breaking scene break, right? Are you talking about the little 5 stars you put between?
No, you can even you could write it out. I would prefer, as a reader, to see a little space, either some asterisks, a line, a little bit of extra white space in between them to break the scenes apart. But that's just me. Some people don't do that.
So how many scenes do you typically do per chapter?
2. Almost always 2.
Why 2?
Because I want to have my chapters be between 2,000 and 3,000 words, preferably between 2,200 and 2,800. I have a target for my chapter size, and 2 scenes pretty much fills the low end of that. It usually ends up being 2,200 to 2,500 words.
Interesting.
My scenes tend to be very close to one another in size. I'm not sure why, but 1,100 or 1,200 words a scene is just about what I do.
I used to try and hit the 2,000 word mark for a chapter. Now, I know better.
10 million words. What did you had like a 20,000 word chapter?
No, it wasn't 20,000 words, but I had at least 2 that were 10.
Those are some serious chapters.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they had like 11 scenes in them. 11 different points of view shift.
All right, well, we're going to have to go ahead and sidetrack into this particular set there. I put 2, maybe 3 scenes if something ends up being short inside a chapter. What drives putting scenes in a chapter? How do we figure out how we're going to group these things?
Okay. So just hang with me for a second. Why would you ever want a chapter with 7 to 11 different scenes in it?
I wouldn't.
Why?
Because it would become muddy. I want them to be crisp.
You want them to be crisp. Why do you feel they become muddied?
If something I learned attending a professional writers workshop that had Michael Stackpole and Aaron Alliston teaching it at DragonCon 2010, as a matter of fact. That's where I spent most of my time during that was listening to them talk about writing on a professional level. And they said that if your chapter lengths are between 2,200, 2,800 words, somewhere in that ballpark, then that's the right time frame of somebody reading that they'll be tempted to flip the page and keep reading. If you've got a long chapter, they may just close the book and set it down. So that's where I get my desire to have it fall in that range.
Okay.
And it's worked well for me.
Okay. I am writing suspense. I am writing, like, for instance, with Derelict, where I have actually got in the same relative period of time, it's like a goddamn TV show where it's flipping back and forth because you have to see and deal with these different things that are going on because they're all going on in the same 3-minute interval.
Sounds like an episode of 24.
Yeah, pretty much. So either these things are directly linear in the sense that as soon as this thing happens, this other thing happens, then I have to keep it within the same chapter. I just have to. But there's a trick to keep them from reading, or keep them from putting down the book, keep them from reading. Yeah, I really want people to keep.
Which books of you did you use that one in?
I want to keep people from reading my books. That's why I publish them. What I do is I make it so at the end of that scene, it leads into the next scene with a point of view shift. So we leave off with whoever the main character is for that scene, making some remark or hope about what happens next. And then we jump to who that is that's supposed to be doing that or what they've encountered. So I do this flipping back and forth, but I keep it all in the same chapter because if I didn't, Derelict would have had like 120 chapters.
Or you could just be a rebel and have no chapters.
It's
all the same book. One big chapter.
No. Although, there are parts of Derelict that could have done that with. I think, I wish I was kidding. I think that there are times when you want to do it. There is a section of 25,000 words that I could have kept in the same chapter because of this very problem. But I had to draw the line somewhere. But this depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. But you do have to do that strategy, which is to lead them into the next thing. And I don't necessarily know that it's necessarily the chapter. It's the chapter break itself that gets them to want to turn the next chapter. There's other ways to do it.
It's not the chapter break that gets them to turn the chapter. The key there at the end of every scene is to introduce some type of complication to make them wonder how that's going to be resolved. Or if you do that and switch to a different character that you've previously left a little bit in a lurch. So as they come back to that character, they're like, oh, that character, that guy had this going on. I wonder what happened with that. Then they keep reading.
Right. Well, I'm doing exactly the same thing, only with breaks within the chapter.
Yeah, so, it's all a different sort of thing. I am following... Yeah. I have absorbed an artificial process of saying my chapter lengths should fall into this range and made it part of my process. When I was writing the first set of books that I wrote, my chapters would end up being 4,000 or 5,000 words. And I decided to go ahead and trim them back a bit. I've become a little less talky as I go along. This was before any of the works I published under my own name, but I've advanced as a writer and trimmed back some of my wordiness, and it fits well. I said 2 scenes fit within the range. I will use 2 scenes. Boom, done. And I made that artificial choice to make that so.
Okay, fair enough. If you go look at Gears Inferno, chapters are pretty short. They're about 2,500 words max, and I have some in there that are only 700.
King can do it in like 3 words.
So there's meaning, there's reasons for why writing that book is different from writing The Black or Derelict. There's a different strategy going on.
In a way, looking at scenes and chapters, let's say scenes. I've been watching the Amazon show Jack Ryan, based on Tom Clancy's novels, and it's for understanding what genre that is. It's definitely got thriller elements in it. And you can look at the scenes and you can tell where the scene breaks are if that was a book. Because what the characters are doing, even though you may still have the same exact characters, they've reached a conclusion of a conversation with somebody and they've changed locations. They've changed
the change in locations.
They've changed time. Yeah. There's going to be a break of some kind that says some time has passed. You can definitely tell, even though things are happening in a rapid fire sequence, when that time break happens, the scene is over.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I think that saying that a time break is probably the best demarcation line.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was trying to remember is scene and sequel.
Okay.
Tim Butcher's scene and sequel. So I argue that you could have a 7,000 word scene because you don't get to the sequel until after it's all over.
I would be totally wrung out at the end of a 7,000 word scene. I'd be reading, Jesus Christ, why is anyone still alive? Holy shit. Can they possibly just all die now?
A 7,000 word scene with a 100 word sequel.
Maybe so. Of course, when you're reading a book and you're engrossed in it, you don't notice how long the scenes are. You don't notice how long the chapters are.
Now, if the writer's doing their job, you don't notice. It's the problem is when you sometimes get in the swampy middle, the scenes don't have the same fluidity.
The same
some
snap.
of them, yeah, some of them downright feel forced because it's the author trying to find their way through the story, or maybe there's just some information they've got to impart and there's no good way to do it. So you have to decide. You have to decide on whether or not you're going to employ a gimmick to get across the information you need to get across, or if you're going to have to dumb it down so you can do it in a couple sentences.
Yeah. The thing that I had a vision of in the swampy middles is having this kid sit there and go, "I'm bored." That's the thing you want to avoid. You want the reader to not be bored.
Yeah.
You can get information out. You can do things that aren't slam bang action. You can do all of that kind of stuff. You just can't let the reader get bored.
That can be very tricky. But
it
yes.
can be. In the middles of the books that I'm doing, there's a lot of character growth going on. There's a lot of exploring scenes and setting things up, but it's in a way that there's still conflict. There's still things to be accomplished. There's still setbacks to be had. And it may not be like the climax of the story, but there are still consequences and they're still taking place in the middle. And that's how you can write the middle of the story and not have it sag completely.
Not have it sag completely.
That's another story. That's another show talking about swampy middles.
Swampy middles. Derelict Tomb was a swampy middle.
The entire book from beginning to end?
Yeah, pretty much.
Are we talking the Two Towers level of swampy middle?
I hope not, because I was bored as shit by that book. It gets you can just see it with certain movies where they kind of drop you in on things. You get a flash bang of characterization. I'm thinking of Saving Private Ryan, for instance. You got a whole like 25 minutes of just insanity. You don't know these people. You don't know anything about them. All you know is their reactions. Maybe you hear them be called by somebody by their name, but it doesn't matter. It's just the crazy that's going on. We don't find anything out about these people until after that's all over. And then after that, we got the roundup of the characters that are going to go on the rest of it, and then they march along their way into the swampy middle. But that beginning scene or that beginning section, that beginning act, you don't know anything about the characters. Nothing. It's just all action the entire way through. That rarely works doing something that long.
One of the things you can do to shake things up in the middle is to have a character reveal some of their personality by doing something that the reader did not expect. But it's still perfectly in line with how that character is. They just may not realize it until it's explained a little bit after the events. And spoiler alert, I'm going to say something that happened during Jack Ryan here, one of the middle. I don't want you to cut it out.
Oh, you don't want me to cut it out?
I don't want you to cut it out. I'm giving a spoiler warning to the listeners that I'm about to mention a very specific plot element that happened in like the middle episode, one of the middle episodes of this show. And so skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to hear that particular thing. There's a scene where they are fighting the bad guys to get a hostage. The bad guys have the hostage with a gun to the head. The CIA guy makes an agreement. We'll take the woman. You can keep the kids. And everybody's like, no, don't do that. And as soon as the guy turns his back, the CIA guy brings his gun up and shoots him in the head. Boom, dead. Boom, dead. It was in character with him. You thought at first he's going to let them take the kids. but he didn't. He responded by doing something violent and ending the confrontation in a way that explained later was why he did it that way.
Okay. Yes. So, for instance, he was in a hostage situation before, and maybe the hostages died or whatever else.
Pretty much something along those lines.
Right. Yeah. That kind of stuff is things. Those are things I try and drag into the characters where they are maybe reliving a part of their past based on what they're doing at the time.
Yeah, this spoiler alert's going to go on longer than that, I'm afraid, then, because yeah, to heck with it. Here, space that put something in there saying, no, we're going to actually talk about this for like 5 minutes. Suck it up.
You heard the man.
Not something they say. They could have said at the beginning, said, yeah, I got tossed out for this or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't even reveal anything of that. They just leave it on the table, and they're only drawing up elements of it as the story goes along to help draw out how long it takes you to understand the character.
Which is kind of what I've been doing by dropping these little hints of the Scaparelli Rebellion and the Satellite War without really going into any detail.
That's a pro move. Doing stuff like that is a pro thing. You don't have to tell everything about what you're talking about in a story right up front. You can drag it out, and you probably should.
And you can make it into another book.
You can make it into another trilogy.
Why trilogy?
Well, I say that to start with because I don't want to scare you.
Oh, God. Yeah, just hopeless. So, scenes...
How many books have I talked you into doing in this series? It feels like 6 of them are on the drawing board right now that have expanded into this series because of me.
Yeah, you're trying
and
to take
you're very welcome.
You're trying to take credit for my insanity. Thanks.
Yeah, well, what are friends for?
Yeah, the problem is that unlike you, who's building a space opera thing where you can tell it in distinct episodic chunks, I decided to bite off the goddamn stand.
It could be worse. You could be writing Robert Jordan stuff.
Oh my God. Somebody brought up Robert Jordan this weekend. I was just like, how many books are in that series now? 14, 15? I thought Sanderson was supposed to close it up in 1, and I think he took 2 for him to close it up.
It took 2 for him to close it up.
God.
And I think there were like 11 or 12 already in it at that time. So it's got 14 or 15 books in that series. I picked up the audiobook for the first one because I stopped at book 5. I said, I'm not reading anything more until this author is done because I'm no longer convinced he's going to finish it while he's still alive.
And he knew he wasn't going to finish it while he was still alive.
Apparently at the end he did, but he had hopes. He was close. He almost made it. And so, yeah, the first book is 29 hours.
Wow.
I couldn't even begin to tell you what the rest of it's going to be like, but it's going to be significant. It's going to be an investment of time to listen to the Wheel of Time series.
Eesh. Oh, 29 hours for the first book. Oh.
I like the first book.
I haven't read it. I have to be honest. I have not read any of them. I don't have an opinion on it. I know some people who are rabid fans of it. I know some people who are rabid fans of it up to book 6 or 7 and then got disgusted and threw the book away. So I got no...
I could believe that. I stopped at book 5. So there could have been stuff going on afterward that I have no idea about because first I thought it was a trilogy. Oh, wait, no, there's 4 books. And then I hit book 5 and like, yeah, I don't trust you anymore. Now I don't know how many books are in this series.
That's why I have to end Derelict in book 5. It has got to get done.
Well, the problem with them being that long, the problem with it being that long of a series, I should say, was with the books being that long. These were not small tomes.
And I'm sure there were a couple of years between them all, right?
There was time between them, and I got tired of having to wait such a long time for the next one. What you're doing, you can produce the books much more quickly than Robert Jordan did. I don't think you were subject to the same level of, oh, it's going to be 3 years before I see the next book in this series. So I don't think you have that concern.
No, I don't have that particular concern. I have other concerns, but Swampy Middle is very funny because I keep looking at Swampy Middle as really, you can have an entire story that has a Swampy Middle and that's made up of multiple books. Really don't want to get into that. I don't want to do that either. I like what you're doing better than what I'm doing. My problem is I can't tell this kind of story in what you do.
You could.
Not this kind. Not this kind. Swampy middle, next episode. Yes. We got off track. I'm shocked.
There we go. I've got the note up there because otherwise I'll have forgotten what we intended to do by the time the next episode comes along.
All right. So how do you screw up a scene?
Oh, God. Let me count the ways.
How do you screw up? How do you know if you've screwed up a scene?
If the scene goes off the rails and you have no idea how to corral the story back into motion in the direction the plot needs it to go, you have ruined the scene. If the scene fails to deliver what you intended to deliver, if your thriller scene ended up being a dud and people got to the end of it going, what? I'm bored, then you have failed. Your scene has to either deliver what the reader is expecting, advance the story in some way that makes sense for the way you're writing that story. It's got to do those kind of things. Otherwise, it's failure. There's a lot of ways to fail, and it's hard to define success. But you know when you run across a scene that failed. It's like watching a movie in the middle of it, and you go, what just happened?
Why is that there?
What? Let me back this up and take another look at that again. If somebody has to back up into your scene, you've probably blown something.
You can't have a flash forward inside a flashback. That's just bad writing.
I triple dog dare you to have a flash forward in a flashback. Ooh, better yet. Here you go. You have a flashback of an oracle seeing the future.
Oh, God. That's so cheap. That is so cheap. That's out of a bad horror movie. That's Lon Chaney stuff right there. Anyway, that notwithstanding, there are some scenes that you put in there every once in a while just for comic relief, just to give a break from the action, maybe break the tension. It doesn't necessarily advance the story directly, but there are ways that you can do that in the sequel part when the characters get time to go back and look at things and comment on them. That is a scene. So there's that. All these things kind of link together for time frame purposes, unless you're doing something crazy. And why is Minnie staring at me?
It's because she wants to be on the podcast.
Shadow, you want to be on the podcast? He's glowering at me. I guess not. Terry.
She climbed down off of her bed and wanted on me, so that's just the way it works.
Oh, God. It's just,
I think that one of the things that I'm doing that I don't really run into, since I'm switching between point of view characters, I don't really run into one scene that's not advancing the story in some way or another.
Right.
The characters are always doing something to advance the scene. And that's one of the benefits of not using a single point of view character, is because you don't have to take a scene where something boring or just info dumpy is happening. You can switch off to somebody else, seeing it from a different angle. You can pick and choose which character would be the most interesting to watch something, the one that you need to have doing something, and you can make that happen. I find that writing a story with 3 or 4 main point of view characters works very well for allowing me a lot of freedom of motion to not hit the slow bog points. Something interesting is always happening.
Yes, I agree with you there. That is the advantage of using multiple POVs. If you have a first-person POV or a tight-focused third-person narrator where that's the only person they get into, the only person's head they get into. Well, I said that really wrong. If you have that kind of, if you're writing that kind of story, I would say the way you get around that is you have a chance to really drag some stuff out of the character's past. You have a chance for the character to really come to grips with something. A scene doesn't have to be boring because it's a chance for you to let us know who the hell these people are.
You can get away with writing a story that has one point of view character but you run the risk of having dead time.
Yes, you do.
I got away with doing it in my post-apocalyptic story because basically shit was happening from the moment go, and it never really stopped going.
Right.
There were less exciting periods of time, but they were building back up from some disaster. And I could stick with one person in doing it. When I get back to writing a sequel on that, I am almost certainly going to expand it to more points of view.
Okay. That's a whole nother, that is an entirely different episode on reader expectations with series.
What reader expectation are you talking about?
Well, okay, so the first Black Book had like 10 points of view. Mm-hmm. Second Black Book had 6 or 7. Outbreak had at least 10. And then Evolution's got 2.
Empire of Bones had 2.
Yep.
Somewhere in the middle, I got up to 6 and said, that's too many, and backed it down to 4. So I have been in that boat as well. This is not new. We've all experimented, and you don't know something is going to be a failure, or maybe failure is not even the right word. You don't know that you're not going to enjoy writing something in a particular fashion until you get to that point. You got to stretch yourself. You got to make it work to find out what your limits are.
I could realistically have 12 POVs, if not 14 in this book. Easily.
Who are you, Stephen King?
I don't want to do it. That's why I had so much trouble writing it to begin with. Once I cut it down to 2, snap, snap, snap. Snap, snap, snap. Every scene matters because every scene we're finding out something new.
If you've got too many point of view characters, you run the risk of having the reader get lost and not being able to figure out who you're talking with.
Yeah, who's who, who's what, yada, yada. When you read something like Peter F. Hamilton, Commonwealth Saga or Night's Dawn Trilogy, when you have to go back and there's like this massive list of characters to basically make you remember, it's you're either one of the readers who's okay with it and just rolls with it and will look back at the stuff in the next book if you've forgotten who these people are, or you're going to get so overwhelmed that even during the story, when you've been introduced to these people every other scene, you'll still forget who they are. So yeah, the story runs that risk if you got that many POVs.
You've got that works for some people. Having 1 works for some people. Having 2 works for some people. You got to find what makes it work for you. Don't let somebody else say, oh, you need to have more. You need to have less. Find what works to tell the best story that you can tell and stick with it. And it may be different between story to story. Don't let that freak you out. Don't let it freak you out. You're going to be fine.
You're going to be fine until you start drowning.
Until you start switching between first and third person between books and really annoying people. No, I don't know that anybody's ever done that. You know, had one book in third person, had the next one in first, present tense, past tense, future tense. I don't know. Don't change those between books. That's probably a bad idea.
That sounds like you're committing literature in a series. I think that kind of goes back to the idea of the scene, though, is neither Terry nor I are fans of head hopping.
So it can be done well.
It can be done well.
I've read Nora Roberts where she, in the same paragraph, can hop in between heads. And she's a pro. She can make it happen.
It can be done well.
We are not pros. not when it comes to that kind of thing. You're taking a real risk when you do that, but you still can make it work. I
think I could make it work. I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
Then don't do it, man.
Yeah, I feel it gives you, it really leads to superficial understanding of the characters. I think it really does. I don't think it's very good for building tension. I don't think it's very good for building suspense. I don't think it's very good in, obviously, in action scenes and things like that. I just don't, that's not the kind of book I like.
An interesting scene that I think I could see with the head hopping like that is you're at a dinner party and you're going around having various people talking at the dinner party, and you mix in a murderer with it, and you're trying to figure out, okay, which one of them is it?
Well, that would be like the telepath episode in Buffy where she hears somebody say they're going to commit murder, but she's hearing thousands of people. and has no idea who. She only knows it's going to happen.
Something like that would be interesting. That's an interesting way to use first and third person in the same book, where you're writing third person, but when you switch to like the murderer, you're in first person. You don't ever have to mention a name. Oh, by the way, I was told that I need to go ahead and at some episode in the future refer to myself in the third person always, during the episode.
I can always edit out every portion that you're in. I can always do that.
I have no idea why I'm supposed to, but I remember seeing somebody say I should.
I had something to do with the royal we. I have no idea.
Yes, and Terry Mixon does this, and Terry Mixon does that. And I don't know. I don't understand why I was going to do that, but something you said brought that to mind.
Bob Dole moment. Bob Dole.
You're right. I remember that now.
Bob Dole. More blasts from the past.
Wow.
What else about scenes?
I can't find the right words to put it in my head for a second.
You can't find the right words to put it in.
It's a very vague thought. I can't verbalize what I'm thinking. Cut this part out, damn it. I can't remember where I was going. Hey, but don't
Geritol. Ginkgo biloba.
I'd take some of that if I could remember. I got nothing to say on that. We've said everything
to say.
Obviously the idea is not that important. So yeah.
Obviously not. Obviously not.
When you get to be my age, if you can't remember it, fuck it.
I'm not even going to dissect that statement either. You and I are doing really well with the English language today. Seriously. But, I haven't talked to anybody all day, so pretty much no wonder.
I'm the low bar.
You're the low bar. It's like Terry and I start the podcast and Paul goes, "Oh, another person to talk to. Oh my God. Oh my God."
Now I have to get out my words.
Yeah. That part of my brain's just dead. Well, I had to use it a lot this weekend. I think it's so.
I was thinking about that. They say that after a period of time of not speaking, that you'll get a little crazy when you don't have human interaction. And I was thinking about that. If somebody was in a post-apocalyptic scene and had no one, and the book drags out for months and years of them being out in the wilderness, what kind of wacky, crazy ways could they go nuts?
Tom
Even
Hanks.
if they were saying, he talked to a soccer ball. He had somebody to talk to.
Yeah. He had a volleyball.
Yeah.
But this is typically why a character picks up something and starts, it's their pen pal or the chance for them to have conversations with.
Well, in a movie, you pretty much got to have to do that. Otherwise, it's a lot of guy walking around not saying a single word.
Right.
That would be bad in a movie.
Yeah. In a film, it would be very bad. But even in a book, it would be kind of bad.
No, you can still do the interior thoughts.
That's the thing, though. You still have to do the interior thoughts.
If you were writing the book there, you could have the volleyball be talking back.
That would be one of my books. Yeah, it would definitely be talking back. But again, that's the interior monologue, right? That's somebody talking to themselves, literally. You're just casting identity on this other thing to be the devil's advocate.
Yeah, you could do that, but you could also have it be a distinct personality talking back like it was really there.
Very much so. Very, very much so. There are plenty of books and films that do that.
That sounds like another episode.
Ways to make your character even more psychopathic than normal.
That's yet another episode.
We got lots of episodes ideas here. Oh, it's Minnie again.
She's been sitting over there looking like she's going to jump on me, and so I picked her up to keep that from happening.
So it sounds like you've run out of ideas about scenes.
That's it. I'm out of ideas.
You're out of ideas.
Well, actually, there is one thing. Do scenes differ based on the length of the overall work? I mean, a scene in a short story versus a scene in a novel. Are they different? Do they serve different purposes?
Yes.
I think that is where my original idea was going with, but I got distracted in the middle of it because I'm old and squirrels.
Because I'm old and squirrels. I think that they They serve the same purpose, but they serve the same purpose differently. As we mentioned, short stories, you have very little time for characterization, very little time. So typically short stories are compressed. Typically they are compressed in time that the character spends. Don't have to be. I'm just making a generalization here. And yes, I know it's completely and totally inaccurate, and you do not have to tell me all the ways that I am imprecise. I'm saying in general, short stories are compressed, especially when they're under 5,000 words, or let alone 3,000 or flash fiction. I mean, come on. So with a book, you have the ability to spend more time in those chapters doing things and giving us a relationship with the character and spending time with that to give us a better relationship with them and better understanding what's going on. Short story scenes, you have to convey that information pretty damn fast. And so it's a different animal. Those scenes do have to be more pointed. You can't really wander around too much.
And a short story scene might actually encompass the entire short story.
Exactly. Which is the argument that started this episode. Now you're coming around to my agreement.
No, only when it comes to short stories. I dare you to write a 130,000 word novel length in a single scene. Go.
No thanks, because I don't have that story in my head. There'd have to be a story.
No one has that story in their head.
I'm sure somebody's written it. I'm sure somebody's written it.
What was that 1 million word novel, The Death of Sleep or something like that?
You talking about the one that, shit, what's his name? Alan Moore wrote?
Maybe.
This was the last book I heard that was 1 million words, and evidently really needed an editor.
It needed like 3 editors. Got to work in shifts with something like that.
Yeah, 1 million words. Yeah, spell check crashes just trying to go through the document. Yeah, there may be time. There may be.
Can you imagine the anguish when your word processor corrupts your file when you're like in the last scene on that sucker?
You know, you really shouldn't say things like that, because I'm the one that's going to get bit by it.
I heard somewhere somebody actually had Scrivener crash and it corrupted their file. It doesn't happen often, but apparently it's possible.
I've never heard of that.
It was only one person. It was only one person, so it obviously doesn't happen very often, but apparently it can happen.
See, kids, this is why you back up things. Constantly back them up. Not just once every few days, I'll back this up. No. Always back it up. Since I've been playing with Scrivener, I've got it set to save a backup of it anytime I open or close the file. Correct. That's what I've got going too. Kind of helps.
So it might lose it if I might lose a session, but that's it.
A session.
Well, if it only does a backup when I start a session, start up the program, and when I close it down, it's entirely possible I might lose a day's worth of work.
No, that's true.
If it goes corrupt. I could set it up to every time I save it, it puts a backup, but that seems a little extreme. I may still do it, but it still seems extreme.
All right. So what we've learned from this episode is Terry has lots of ideas about scenes, but can't express them. And you should always back up your work.
Yeah, that pretty much is it. We'll go ahead and put that in a bullet form and just right there.
Well, if you have some ideas about scenes that we didn't cover or to tell us how wrong we are, you can send an email to show@debrobotssociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley. You can... I've forgotten something else.
Someone else's memory failure.
You can also find us on Facebook at the Listeners of the Dead Robot. I cannot talk today. Listeners of the Dead Robot Society podcast, where you can join the other lunatics we have in there. I think we have like 800 plus people now. Anyway,
entirely possible.
Lots of cool conversations going on. Come join us. We have to thank our wonderful host, Pod Hoster, without which all 5 billion episodes of the DRS would not be available for your ear holes. And you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. You can become a Patreon patron at patreon.com/DRS podcast. And if you're one of those folks who's silly enough to support us at the $10 level, you get your name read every week. So here we go. Sue, how many books are you up to now? Bayman, J.D. Barker, Corley Davison, Kelson, Imagine an Imaginary Menagerie Manager Managing an Imaginary Me. Gotcha. Isabel Cushy.
Hold on.
What?
That is amazing. You need some kudos right here on the spot for that one.
I thank you, sir. It was quite good. I'm going to fuck this one up, though.
Grand success followed by bitter failure.
This isn't even spelled properly. I'm going to pronounce it the way I think it's supposed to be. Rick, suicidal No, I give up. Shaw, you got me there. But I don't know. This doesn't even make sense to me. Suicidal picks no, I can't do it. Lisa Slack, Sandy Manpants, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Nathan Innerer, Schweinhund Petty, Drew Whiteboard's a remarkable Bernardi, Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
Thanks for supporting us, folks.
What mushroom trip are you guys on this weekend anyway? God. Yes, thank you, patrons.
They're harshing their mellow, man.
Yeah, I guess so. All right. With that, we're going to get out of here. Until next week, Terry.
Hasta la vista.
Bye.